My name is Christina, and I am an alcoholic. I am going to share my story of what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now. The reason I'm sharing this is because it is the night before my 9-year AA birthday. And one of the things that I learned about being in the program is to be of service. And it was the people who were sharing their stories where I got the most juice. And I realized there's a lot of people out there who aren't in the rooms. And so sharing my story can inspire some experience, strength, and hope in someone else. I hope you enjoy. And if you like what you hear, please share it with someone and let them know that there are people willing to help. To get started, we'll just say that I have more than one addiction, and my first addiction started when I was 5 years old, and it was an eating disorder. At the age of 5, life was too difficult for me to be here on this planet in my body. There really wasn't like anything hugely traumatic for me. I'm just super sensitive. None of this I knew. And there was a lack of love in my home. I was verbally abused and I was physically abused, but none of this I realized until later when I got sober. My mother was an alcoholic, and so I learned to numb out and cope. I wanted to escape at the age of 5. So I did. During high school, I was very mute, very quiet, very self-conscious. I never felt like I belonged. And I also had my secret, my addiction. So I never really was that social. I was social with 1 or 2 people at a time, but I always felt like anything that was going to come out of my mouth was going to be dumb. I never spoke unless I was home, and I annoyed the crap out of my family and they made it known. Anyways, I was a good student, didn't really get into much trouble. It wasn't until I was 19 that I was in Florida with my friend whose sister had just gotten married, and she had 2 IDs with 2 different names, her married name and her other name. So I used her ID, and since I could drink, I drank. And actually, as I remember, I'm pretty sure that my intention that night was to get drunk. But within no time, I was taking shots and dancing in cages. That is where it all started. It continued. I went from 0 to 60. So when you get into the program, you learn that the disease is progressive. For me, it went from 0 to 100 in a matter of no time. Got back from that trip, and immediately, I grew up in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. So immediately I was in the city at raves, doing drugs, just a complete party girl within 1 week of taking my first drink. Well, I'm not going to lie, and I'm going to be honest and say, you know, it was actually fun at first. I always made sure it was fun. Actually, for me, it wasn't like, oh my God, I'm having a bad day, I need a drink, or oh my God, I broke up with my boyfriend, I need a drink. It was just, I was always finding reasons to celebrate and to drink and party. It looked fun. The truth is, I was very, very lonely. I was flailing through life. I had no idea how to be responsible, and however I was functioning. So I never got a DUI. I never lost a job until I was 6 months sober. I was never homeless. I was never. So it looked like I was just a fun girl. Really did a good job of maintaining that reputation. And even when I got sober, friends would be like, well, you're not that bad, or you just haven't learned how to control it yet. And so like from the outside looking in, no one would have ever been able to tell. But I was lonely. I was empty, and I was lonely inside. And I struggled through recovering from the eating disorder. It was like I wasn't gonna do that again. Like I wasn't gonna go through that process, you know, like I knew what it was like to recover. And honestly, when I recovered from the eating disorder, it was a very, very divine intervention. The only reason I'm bringing in the eating disorder is because that was the first moment that light was dropped into my being that I could potentially be an alcoholic. At my eating disorder treatment center, we would go to AA meetings every Friday night. And the reason why is that well, a lot of us were cross addicted, but they wanted us to be around recovery. Most of the time I would bring my journal or I'd steal my phone and I would like text message people. I never paid attention on these Friday nights. One night I heard someone, I heard a woman, and she was a single mother. And at the time I was a single mother of one child. When I was there listening to her, I remember having the experience of feeling what she felt. Just felt what she felt. That's why I'm sharing this in these story parts, because the details were similar enough for me to tune in, but the feelings is what I felt, because I cannot tell you what this woman said, but I know at the end of her speech, I had the thought that the reason I chose an eating disorder is because otherwise I could be an alcoholic. I'm sharing this also to show how thick the denial was. It took a long time for me to have that denial shatter in order for me to really embrace that I had a problem. For example, I'm going to talk about my bottoms. I've had several of them. I mean, I partied a lot and I hit a lot of bottoms. I ended up in a relationship with 2 people, and because of that, after I blacked out, I decided to kill myself, and I took 2 bottles of Klonopin, a bottle of Percocet, and a bottle of Vicodin, and I didn't die. I did wake up. I came to in a psych ward, and as soon as I got home, I got loaded. So a couple of days later, I had to come to Jesus, but that was March of 2012. December 7th, 2013 is my sobriety date. I still had a lot of time in me, so that was not enough. It was just not enough. So I'm gonna fast forward over here after the overdose and into the next year. I was flailing between guys, from boyfriend to boyfriend, between jobs, and I just had nothing under my feet. At this point in my life, I didn't even have friends. I had people that I used to get what I wanted. Everyone was a means to an end. So I really didn't have any close relationships, even though I was part of all these spiritual groups and I was facilitating and hosting part of these really amazing communities. I didn't feel connected to anyone because I couldn't connect. No matter what I did to stop, I just couldn't. At this point, I'm suffering and I really don't know why, right? I'm suffering, I don't know why. I think it might be alcohol, but I'm really okay because like I'm still functioning. I get up, I go to work every day. Haven't had a DUI. I am functioning, so it's fine. I can still do this. My daughter, who every morning she'd wake me up and I would hop out of bed because I had a rule that I didn't drink around my kids, but I broke that rule. The disease is progressive. I broke that rule and I would drink around my kids, and she would come in the mornings and wake me up, and usually I'd pop out of bed, but then this time she would stroke my cheek. And it was becoming a pattern where I would ask her, get me a cold water. And this one morning she said, "Mommy, I don't know what's wrong, but you never needed cold water before." And this was August of 2013. Even with my heart and soul, she was 5 when that happened. It broke my heart. Broke my heart completely. I couldn't stop. I started to pray. I prayed and prayed and prayed, and I asked God, my higher power. I didn't know who I was praying to. I just was like, fuck it, I'm gonna pray. So I started praying and I asked, like, please disrupt my life enough so that I can stop this patterning. I can't keep doing this patterning. So it wasn't like I'm an alcoholic. It was just like, I can't keep doing this pattern. Something happened. I was praying a couple times where I got almost a car accident, and I thought, ooh, oh man, I missed it. Thinking that with my alcoholic mind and my negative thinking that I needed like an accident or a tragedy or something. And also in the back of my mind, it was like, cool, I'll just stay in bed with pills all day. It's fine. Like, I'll take that option if it means I won't drink. How desperate I was. That I would have rather been in bed on pills instead of drinking. So one day it happened. I remember comes around and I had my bottom, which is a very vulnerable moment, which I usually do share in meetings, but I'm not gonna share it here on TikTok or any social media. But if you know me, you know that from the outside looking in, my bottom was nowhere near as tragic as the overdose that happened to me, or the many times I ended up in the hospital, or so on and so forth. It was my bottom. And I hit my knees. This time I said, I'm gonna go to AA and I'm gonna do the work. At that moment, that's all I needed, was just that little bit of willingness, because the truth is I resisted the program for the first 6 months of my sobriety. I went to the meetings, but I resisted it. When I was 6 months sober, I did get laid off from my job, and it was at 6 months that I embraced the program. I did the steps. I followed suggestions. I went to the workshops. I did the steps. I listened to my sponsor. I called my sponsor. I called her because at that point, it wasn't about drinking. It was about life. I don't know how to live life right now. I did what I was supposed to do because I wanted what they had. And I sponsored girls and I carried the message. Step 12 is carry the message, which is what I'm doing with this story. For a long time in my sobriety, the desire to drink did not go away. And it was hell. Let me tell you, it was hell. I remember one day I was just waiting for it. I was just waiting for the desire to drink to go away. And one day I realized, oh my God, the desire to drink does get lifted. I don't know how long I didn't have a desire to drink before I realized I didn't have a desire to drink. That for me was the thing, one thing that kept me drinking was, I don't want to live if this desire to drink doesn't go away. And it did. Because of that, I spent a lot of years avoiding places, people, and things around alcohol. While it's still not my first choice, the evolution of my sobriety it's really fun. I just want to share it with the world. There was a day where I was so hopeless, many days, okay, but there was a day where I was so hopeless that I would have rather been dead. It is true that my worst day sober is better than my best day drinking. I hope that this has inspired anyone. I hope it's given someone hope. If it hasn't, that's okay. I needed to say it out loud. If it gives you hope for yourself or anyone that you love, let me know.